Welcome to Edified, Insights for LDS Women. I'm your host, Melinda Morgan. This podcast is for busy LDS women who are looking for ways to draw closer to the Spirit and deepen their connection to Christ. In a word, this podcast is about connection, our connection to each other and our connection to Christ. This week, I am super excited to have Becky Squire as my guest. Becky has a passion for writing and mentoring women who feel called to influence the world online. She has been published in a variety of media, including The Today Show, LDS Living, and the Ensign. Becky is also the founding editor of Latter-day Woman magazine. Now, I've had a chance to get to know Becky a little bit better since our interview, and I can tell you that she enjoys running, especially in those mountains of northern Utah, but I'm thinking any mountain would do. She loves to travel with her husband and her 4 children, and is a self-proclaimed cheesecake connoisseur. Who's not, right? So I've asked Becky to share with us the inspiration that led her to creating Latter-day Woman magazine, and also to talk to us about the 3 things the women of the church have been called to do. So are you ready for this? Let's get edified, everyone. Okay, we are just going to jump right into my conversation with Becky. So enjoy.
Hi there.
Hello.
I am so excited to talk to you again. Oh my gosh.
I know, me too. This is going to be so fun.
I loved our live that we did. That was only my second time, and I was kind of nervous about it, but I loved it. It was so much fun, and I felt like I can talk to this woman forever.
I know, that's how I felt, and I actually got a lot of compliments on that video. I published it to IGTV, and then I also download it and publish it on my YouTube channel. And I had a few people find it somehow, and they're like, "We found this video on YouTube, and it's so good, and we told our friends and stuff." So
I loved it.
yeah, we'll do
I
that.
loved that conversation. I definitely was so happy that we had scheduled this interview as a because it's a perfect follow-up, because we talked about that being called and those things that get in our way, and the idea of being called and chosen, and kind of that thinking. And I saw that you posted in Instagram this week something about that as well. So
yeah, I published that blog post. Many are called, few are chosen.
Obviously, you and I must have been buddies in the pre-existence, because we were like, hey, when it comes down to this whole feeling called and what is holding women back and what are they being called to do, we were there in the same class, I'm pretty sure. Because our minds are so in sync when it comes to this concept. So if it's okay with you, I'll just dive right in, because we have so much to talk about.
Okay.
And I'm just going to start with kind of where we left off in that live with this women being called. And you wrote a blog recently that you talked about 3 things that women are being called to do. And I really would like for you to start just by telling me about, where did that idea come from? Like, where did you get that inspiration? And you said, be faithful, speak out, and gather Israel. So I'm hoping you can share your thoughts on those 3 things.
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So I just recently totally revamped my blog. I've had my blog for almost 4 years now.
Wow.
And I've been writing on it, or posting a blog post every week. And when I started it 4 years ago, it was basically writing about motherhood and family life, marriage a little bit. And I noticed that the blog posts that were the most popular were the ones about marriage. And so that's kind of what I started focusing on more, is marriage. And so for 3+ years, I still did motherhood and family life and things like that, but mostly marriage. And then I somehow became known as the marriage blogger, and I got asked to speak about marriage. And anyway, I still love the topic of marriage. I do. But as I was blogging and speaking about the family and about marriage, I would also be publishing things about gospel topics. And I realized that that was really my passion. was writing about gospel topics and talking about gospel topics. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later, so I'll just mention it. But earlier this year, actually it was a year ago, I felt called to start a digital magazine called Latter-day Women Magazine. And we will get into that later. But when I started that, I kind of pushed pause on my blog because I just didn't know if I would have much time. And if I did, I just didn't really know how much time I could give it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I just kind of pushed pause, and we launched the magazine earlier this year. And then I don't know if it's been quarantine or what, but I just felt like, I still want to write, and the magazine is not the Becky Squire magazine. And so it's a collective of women from all around the world, and I just am the person that puts it together. But having said that, I still love to write. It's my passion. And so I was like, I really should kind of revamp my blog and start writing on that once a week again. But I was like, if I'm going to restart this, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to do what I want to do, not what I know that my followers want, which I don't know if that's smart or not. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to write about how women feel called to influence the world. And I specifically talk about and help women do it online. Of course, that's not the only way that women can influence the world, but that's kind of what I specialize in. I've designed websites professionally. I am a social media master. And so I thought these are some skills that I can help women with, is to help influence the world, to use their unique voice and their spiritual gifts to do that. And so I help women find those spiritual gifts if they don't know what they are. And if they do know what they are, I help them use them in their own individual, unique way, bless the other women of the church and of the world, and spread goodness all over. So I don't remember your original question.
It's okay. I'm just listening as you're telling me you had this kind of shift in the focus from just focusing on marriage and going to gospel topics so that you can be a light out there in the social world of social media. And most importantly, helping other women share their light through that same medium. And I mean, I love that.
Right.
That is absolutely what we're being asked to do right now.
Right. And you were asking about my last blog post, which is called 3 Things Women Are Being Called to Do.
Right.
And so as I kind of shifted my focus to this, I realized that we all have a call, whether we realize it or not. And while the call is unique, we're also called to the same things, if that makes sense. And so that's where I get into 3 things that we are all called to do is, like you said, be faithful, speak out, and gather Israel. And the way that we do those 3 things is where we need to use our unique voice and our spiritual gifts to do that in our own way and in our own circle of influence.
So do you have, can you give me a couple of examples of how you might help somebody identify their spiritual gift and then use it to do those 3 things or one of those 3 things?
Yeah, so I actually have a free online course on my website, beckysquire.com. And the course, it's a 7-day email course that will help you discover your spiritual gift. And so I won't, give away the whole thing, but basically, like, you have your interests and your hobbies, and those aren't just random, and they're not just to fill in extra time that you have.
Right.
They're given to you for a reason. And so I encourage women to write down what their interests are, even if they're not good at it. Just what are you interested in?
Right.
And then to also write down their hobbies. And then I have a list that I send to the people who take this email course of 72 spiritual gifts that you can use to influence the world. And so there's just a whole list of them. And if you read through them, it's really interesting, because I bet you'll say, oh, I have that, and I didn't even realize it. And so, we know the scriptures in Doctrine and Covenants, they talk about certain spiritual gifts, but it's not exclusive. There are so many spiritual gifts. And one of mine, for instance, is a listening ear. I have people just come to me and to vent, or I'm not going to say I'm a great advice giver, but I'm really good at listening and
that is
at
so
caring.
powerful.
And so I think that well, I know that that's one of my spiritual gifts. And so anyway, so this email course has 72 ideas to kind of get you started. And when you combine your spiritual gifts with your interests and your hobbies, you create something so unique that is only yours, because 100 women have your same hobbies, 100 women have your same interests, and 100 women have your spiritual gifts, but not all three. And so that's where your purpose kind of starts, is how you can use that unique combination to influence your world.
That sounds like a great activity for someone to do, even if they're not so much trying. Like, I feel like I know what my spiritual gifts are, but I think I would want to dive into that just to find out, am I missing something? Are there gifts I have that I could be using right now to, be faithful and to
Mm-hmm.
speak out and to gather Israel? And maybe I just haven't recognized those as gifts.
And not only are there some that you might not have recognized, but you can develop ones that you want but don't have necessarily.
You know what? I think that's an awesome point, because we are told to seek after these gifts. They're not like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't do that right now, so that's not one of my gifts. So go for it. It can,
Exactly.
you can develop those gifts because we've been told to seek after them.
Right. Exactly.
Well, when you're thinking about being faithful, speaking out, and gathering Israel, do you feel like the call that we're doing, that we could be like doing all three, or should we be focusing on one? Or how do you think women are feeling that call?
I think that they all are kind of in line with each other. I don't think that you have to just do one. Even if you focus on one, I think that you'll kind of automatically do the others. I wrote about being faithful first because I think it has to start from within. Before you can speak out, before you can serve others, you have to have at least a desire to do that, whether or not you feel like you have a good foundation or a good testimony. You have to at least have the desire. Does that make sense? And so
Absolutely.
being faithful, it starts within, but then, as we know, faith is an action. Not only do you just have to have faith within, but you have to put it to work. That's where speaking out can come in and gathering Israel can come in.
And a lot of people are actually gathering Israel because they are choosing to speak out right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And when I first heard the phrase speak out, I would always kind of imagine somebody with a platform, whether it's social media or whatever, kind of being a bold leader and speaking out, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think it takes some confidence to do that. And I myself have done that. Then I read this other quote: attacks against the church, its doctrine, and our way of life are going to increase. Because of this, we need women who have a bedrock understanding of the doctrine of Christ and who will use that understanding to teach and help raise a sin-resistant generation. And so that last few words really stood out to me, because I realized that we don't have to be so bold and we don't have to have a platform to speak out. We can speak out by teaching our children, or by teaching our primary class, by raising our children in a gospel-centered home. Those are different ways of speaking out.
Oh, that is awesome. I think there's especially a lot of moms with young kids that really need to hear that right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're so busy with even the kids, well, even moms with teenagers. It's like,
Oh yeah.
I don't have time for any of this, but this is what you're doing. You are
You're already doing it.
Absolutely. What a great message. I think so many need to hear that, hey, you're doing okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned the magazine Latter-day Woman, and
Mm-hmm.
I love it, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It is beautifully done, and I devoured the first copy, the first edition, and then that second edition came out, and it was like, whoa. And
Oh.
they are beautiful. The hard copies are gorgeous, but the online one, it's just so full of so many different resources. At first I thought, this is a bunch of people going to be sharing their spiritual experiences, and it is so much more than that. Could you
Yeah.
talk to us about where the inspiration came for that and what your overall vision is for this magazine?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, the inspiration came about a year ago. It was last August of 2019, and I was not looking to do anything like this, but I was just on a walk one day, and well, I had just kind of started thinking, like, how can I reach more women with a gospel centered message? Because there's so much out there that looks gospel centered, but it's just a little bit off. There's so much content out there. Anybody can put content out and publish it. Anybody can. You just have to be really careful. Before I would read anything, I would say, is this really a good message? I was kind of thinking, how can we get more truth out there for women who are seeking it? And anyway, so back to my walk, I just got back to my house and I heard a voice and it just said, you need to start a digital magazine. And I was like, what? I mean,
Sure.
I've been a blogger for years, so I know a lot about creating things digitally. And so I talked to a couple of good friends and kind of threw the idea out there and to my husband, and everyone was like, yeah, you should do it. And I was like, all right, well, I want it to be free. So by the way, all you readers out or you listeners out there, it is a free digital magazine, quarterly. But of course, now we do provide print editions. Those are not quite free, but almost. um, but I didn't know anything about print either. And so that took a lot of learning on my part, but we now provide a print edition. And anyways, I just knew that I had to have women's voices from all around the world. And we are very selective and very careful of the content that we accept in the magazine. Like you said, I agree with you. It's so good. There's just so many amazing women out there that want their voices to be heard. And this is a platform to do that.
But they also share tips and recipes. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, there's so
Yeah.
much in there.
So as I kind of started thinking about what I wanted the magazine to be, there used to be a Relief Society magazine before I was born.
I'm going back. I go, oh, I think I remember.
Yeah, I think it stopped in the 70s.
Yeah.
Maybe early 70s is when
Yes,
it
you're
stopped.
right.
I wanted like a real church magazine with gospel topics, but I also wanted a lifestyle feel to it because I love, as much as I love the gospel, I just also love like lifestyle tips, recipes, and home improvement and beauty, things like that. We actually don't do beauty in the magazine, but I I just personally love all that type of stuff. And so I was like, okay, we're going to have lifestyle section and it will all have a faithful focus. So that's kind of our tagline is it's a lifestyle magazine with a faithful focus.
I love that. And that's exactly what it is. What have you been surprised, or maybe I should ask, it's probably a lot of surprise, but what has surprised you most as you've been on this journey? Because you're about to release the third one, right?
Yeah, we are getting ready to publish the third one on September 1st. So biggest surprise is just kind of the response that I've gotten. Like I said, I've been blogging for years and never have I gotten not only the amount of feedback, but the quality of feedback of people who just message me and say, you know, this is exactly what I needed. This year, 2020 has been crazy and definitely not what I was expecting as I planned for the year for the magazine. We've had to do a lot of changes because we have to write about current events. You know, we can't not write about COVID and the pandemic and quarantine. And so we've had to change a lot of things, but I love it when I get messages from women saying this is exactly what I needed to hear at this time in my life. And even if it's just one person, like that's why we do it.
I love that idea of even if it just reaches one. I know it's reaching way
Mm-hmm.
more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I know that.
it has grown a lot, and that's another big surprise. But
It's incredible. And
thank you.
I I can't wait for this next one to come out because I know women need these, especially Latter-day Saint women. We need ways we can fill our life with light. And, there's reading the scriptures and studying the conference talks and posting on social media, uplifting messages. But to me, every source that is available to me that helps me fill my life with light, I love. And I feel like I need it because there's so much darkness out there right now. And this magazine is just one of those sources of light that it makes you feel good when you read it. It makes you want to share the message with others. And I just think you're doing a tremendous job with that. And I am really excited to watch it grow.
Thank you so much.
It's amazing. You guys gotta go over there and sign up for the 3rd edition. And you're going to want the back editions. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You're going to want them.
So we're not selling issue 1 print edition anymore. We are selling issue 2 for now, but that's probably going to end in the next couple of months. So you can still order issue 2, and then order issue 3 is obviously going up. Well, by the time this airs, it'll be on sale by the time this airs. So,
and can they still get the PDF versions?
Yes, all the PDF versions will always be available.
Awesome. That's awesome. And tell us how we go to get those.
So our website is latterdaywomanmagazine.com. And a lot of people try Latter Day Women, but it's Latter Day Woman, one woman. latterdaywomanmagazine.com. Yes, exactly. And our Instagram is just Latter Day Woman. And so you can also find the links there.
Awesome. You guys, if you haven't gone over there to check that out, make sure you do that and make sure you follow. You got to follow both Becky Becky Squire and Latter Day Woman, because there are 2 different accounts on Instagram and you don't want to miss anything. So you've been doing the Family Proclamation study, and here's a proclamation that's been out for since 1995. So what's that, 25 years?
And that's why we're doing the study, is to celebrate its 25th anniversary.
That is awesome. I was going to ask you what inspired you to choose to do that right now, and you just answered that question. Tell me about how's that going? And again, are there any surprises that you're finding as you go through that study? You've read it like 500 times in 25 years? How are you seeing it with new lens now?
Oh yeah. So this is probably one of the biggest surprises this year. So I've been a big fan, if you can call it that, a big fan of the Proclamation, the family, since I got married. It's just been a great kind of foundation for my marriage and family. And so earlier this year, somewhere I read that it was the 25th anniversary. And I just kind of thought, well, it seems like the church this year, with General Conference and everything, and the church magazines, is really focusing on the restoration because it's the bicentennial. And I love that topic too, but I just thought, I haven't seen anything about the Family Proclamation. What if I created a group study? I don't know. Thoughts just come into my brain. I don't know where they come from.
But you act on them. That is awesome.
Well, and so I thought, okay, I'll do it, but it's probably not going to bring in very many people, because I've done group kind of things before with my email list and Instagram followers and things like that. And they're fun, but they never like really bring in a ton of new people. And so I started kind of talking about this group study, and I don't know if it's just people sharing about it or people talking about it, but we have more subscribers for the group study than for Latter Day Woman magazine.
Wow.
Which is insane. It totally blew my mind. And we get more and more every day. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get kind of guest hosts. And so I broke up the Family Proclamation. I broke it up into 12 sections, and I asked different Latter-day Saint influencers, some of which I know that you have heard of. I asked them to each take 1 week. And so that one section of the proclamation, and I just asked them to send me 1 paragraph of their thoughts on that section, and then a challenge. So every week, every Monday, the email subscribers get that email from our guest host. And so they get kind of like a deeper discussion of that section. They get a study guide that they can print out. They get access to a private Facebook group where we discuss that week's topic. They get a free printable that you can also use as like your phone wallpaper or something like that, or you can print it out, and a challenge. And we're also having a really big giveaway towards the end. There's a shop that make beautiful prints of the family proclamation. They also do like the articles of faith and the living Christ and just things like that. So they offer to donate a print of the winner's choice, so they can choose which size. They have huge, big sizes or just little. So whoever wins gets to choose the size, and so generous.
That is
And
awesome.
yeah, and so I'm just blown away every week. But if you join any time before it ends, you'll get access to all the previous studies from the previous emails.
You know what I love about them is I had my last child in 1995. All right. So I mean
Mhm.
that's dating me, my daughter,
Mhm.
my baby is now 25 years old. But and so that proclamation came out, and it applied in my life because you were thinking, well, I know all this. Everything in there is like, of course. And then you kind of I did put it on the back burner a little bit. It comes out every once in a while. We're asked to read it, or we're asked to
Mhm.
have a lesson on it in Relief Society or something. And so
Mhm.
every once in a while it would come up. What I found and what I am finding in these discussions are how applicable. Like, this is like someone could have written this right now for this
Mhm.
day. And the foresight of
Mhm.
our leaders when they put that together back then, and here we are. And I love the insights that are shared that make it applicable to what we are experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember reading it when it first came out and reading like the part about gender and thinking like, why would they write about gender?
Yeah.
And now that's just like a really big topic. And so it is so applicable right now, but also with these different guest hosts every week, and also our Facebook group, where we discuss some things. I have learned so much more than I never would have just reading it and studying it again myself. There's great perspectives from other people. I'm like, wow, I would have never thought about that.
It is a deep dive, and a
Hmm.
deeper dive than absolutely deeper dive than what you would get going on your own. And that's what I have loved about this. It's like, whoa, I never thought of it that way before. And
Yeah.
that, that has just been a big surprise and a delight for me. And I am shocked and delighted to hear how many that you've got more than
Yeah.
it blows my mind. I love it. It
I know.
tells
I've got to tell them all, like, hey, you should also subscribe to the magazine.
Yeah, absolutely they should. But how the family is under attack. There is no
Hmm.
question about that right now. And I think when our prophet says, like you said, be faithful, speak out, gather Israel, that speaking out, when we do anything to strengthen our families and to strengthen the institutions of marriage and family, we are doing just that.
Right.
All right. Well, you brought up COVID and the quarantine. We hear a lot about the negative, but at the same time, I've been trying to turn around and say, what has happened that's positive? Because there's a lot that has happened that's positive. So I wanted to ask you that question. What do you think?
So, one thing that I thought of was, for me personally, it has really built my faith. And I think that's something that we have to choose to look for, because it is so easy to see the negative and to dwell on that. But for instance, I went through and went back and listened to recent conference talks and recent just quotes from prophets and apostles. And I'm amazed at how they have been preparing us for this year, for COVID-19. They have been preparing us. Some examples are how they changed the policy, if you got married civilly, that you didn't have to wait to get sealed. And so now that the temples are closed, my niece, for instance, is getting married in a week. They have to get married civilly, and when the temples reopen, whenever that might be, they don't have to wait. That's just one example. There are so many, but we don't have time to get into them all. I do have an article about it though, about recent revelations that have prepared us for this time. And so really you can look back and find all of these ways that the prophets and apostles have been preparing us, and they didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, specifically. And so that just strengthens my faith in that our prophet is a true man of God, and he is watching out for us as a church, and God is watching out for us individually. And so as we continue to listen and heed the prophet's voice, even when it does not make sense at all, I know that we'll be blessed for it. So another way that I've kind of found the positive is our family definitely has become more united. I mean, there's been more fights too, but
Close
overall we've
quarters.
done, yeah, but overall we've done things as a family that we would have never done before. We've gone on so many family walks and spent more time together. And my oldest children are now only a couple years away from going on missions and leaving the nest. I've really treasured that time and try not to take it for granted that I've got all my kids, and it's, we're just enjoying time together.
Isn't that amazing? I agree with you so much on that. I was thinking about that, about the increase in numbers at the lakes, even around here in southern Utah. And they said they have never had so many people and I just thought, this is great. These are families getting outside
Mm-hmm.
together. And I love it. It's funny because my husband non-member for his whole life, and then we've been together 20 years, and all of a sudden a couple of years ago it was like, Sister Morgan, get ready, because there's some amazing things that are going to happen. And all of a sudden, bam, he's a member of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year
Mm-hmm.
ago, we went through the temple, and we just had our 1-year anniversary for being sealed. As I was thinking about that, I thought, when it happened, it was like, okay, now we're in a hurry. And we're in a hurry so much that we're going to send the stake president to your house. We're going to send a general authority to your house. We're going to,
Oh, wow.
and I thought, why is the Lord bringing out the big guns for Ron? I'm looking at Ron going, who
Mm-hmm.
are you? Why? But I look at what we're going through this year. I think of how that has blessed me, because he can give
Mm-hmm.
me the sacrament on Sundays when I couldn't go. And
Yeah,
then I had the
right.
things. So even when church started again, I couldn't go. And
Mm-hmm.
having him able to give the sacrament, not just to me, but to our neighbors who don't have a priesthood holder in their home, and
Yeah.
having somebody to do the gospel study with, because it's just he and I right now. And I thought, wow, all that speeding up, and then suddenly now
Mm-hmm.
I see how my life is being blessed during this time because of that. So I see this happening all over the place, though. The Lord is gathering. He's calling out. He's telling
Yep.
us, go get them, because time is running out. Go get my
Yep.
people, bring them in. And I can feel that happening all around me.
Yeah. Me too.
It's amazing. I think I'm really excited for this next general conference, because
Mm-hmm.
it'll have been 6 months since the last one, and to hear their perspectives on different things that we've had to deal with during this time
Mm-hmm.
that we may not have thought. Like, nobody, I didn't think the temples would be closed this long. I thought, well,
Oh,
this
me
will
neither.
be a few, I never
Mm-hmm.
dreamed that we would be wearing masks to school this year,
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't dream it was going to go on this long, and it doesn't look like it's going to end soon. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that. All right. Well, we're getting down. I have 2 questions I want to ask you that I ask,
Okay.
everybody that I talk to
Okay.
now. But the first one is, with all we hear about how do you hear him and learning to hear him, so many people have spoken about that over the last year, but particularly in the last 6 months, and how important it is that we learn to hear him. So the question I have for you is, how do you hear him?
I love that question. And our last issue, that was the theme for issue 2, was hear him. And it's really interesting because I don't know if you remember the video that President Nelson put out to kind of introduce the
Mm-hmm.
whole hear him initiative. I actually came up with the theme for the magazine in January, even though issue 2 didn't come out until June. I like to plan ahead. And so in January, I just had the thought, oh, hear him. I mean, I knew I wanted it to kind of focus on the restoration. But as I was reading about the restoration, those words, hear him, just popped out at me. And I thought that would be a perfect theme. Well, it wasn't until February that President Nelson came out with that video. And I thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
everyone, well, the first thing I thought was everyone's going to think I'm copying him, but I don't care because obviously this is a message that needs
You're
to be
copying the
out there.
prophet. That's
I
okay.
know. I know. It's totally okay.
Now, did you get goosebumps when that happened? Like, like
Oh,
I was totally receiving
I did.
revelation.
I did. And like I said, I get just thoughts pop into my head. And so to answer your question, that's one way that I hear him. I don't dismiss thoughts as just thoughts, especially if they're good thoughts, because we've been told that good thoughts are the spirit. And so when I have a good thought, I always run with it.
Right.
And that doesn't always mean that it's going to branch out into my vision for it or whatever, but I think it's important to try, whatever it is that good thought is telling you to do. So so good thoughts, that's one way that I hear him. Another
Wow.
way for me personally is by reading the scriptures. That's when I feel the spirit the most, and that's when I receive revelation, I think, the most. And I think it's important for people to kind of know how they personally hear him, because it's different for everybody. And those are just two kind of the biggest ways for me.
Do you find as you're reading your scriptures that revelation that you receive has nothing to do with what you actually read in the scriptures? Or does yours seem to tie directly to what you're reading?
Both. There's a lot of times actually that when I read something and I kind of get revelation, I think, wow, it's really interesting that I would be reading about this story today because it totally relates. And so sometimes I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And other times I will go back and think, what did that have to do with this situation at all? But usually it's the other way.
Nice. I love that. Okay, my last question. This is the Edified podcast, so I have to ask you, what edifies you? And I'm just going to jump in right now and tell people Becky's blog, Becky's magazine are things that edify me. All right. I'm
Oh,
just going to
thank
put that
you.
out there right now. So let's hear from you. What edifies you?
I love the scripture in Doctrine and Covenants. I hope I hope this is the right reference. 88:118, that says to seek ye out of the best books. And I think it's so important to, when you do want to be edified, to seek out the best books. And in my opinion, the best books are the scriptures and books by our leaders, by the prophets and apostles and things like that. So that's where I start. And there are a lot of podcasts. I just recently found one called Edified, and it has really edified me. It really has. It really has.
It's
I've
gonna, oh,
been
someone has the same podcast as me.
I know.
Sneaky,
Sometimes I think I'm
sneaky.
funny. Sometimes I think I'm making a joke and people are like, "What?" um, but no, yours really has like uplifted me a lot. And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but yours is one that I would 10/10 recommend.
That was
But
really sweet. Thank you.
and I really like, you don't even know this, and I'm not just saying it because I'm on your podcast, but I've been recommending your podcast to so many people. Like when I am in a Facebook group, just like a random one, and people are like, oh, can you guys recommend any podcasts? I'm like, oh, I just found this one and I'll link to yours.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
so yeah, if your readers are like new and haven't listened to your first ones, definitely go back and listen. I've been loving past conference general. I just kind of put my earbuds in and listen to general conference. What am I reading right now? I'm trying to read The Infinite Atonement. That one's kind of hard. I really love actually Wendy Watson Nelson. She has a couple books out and they're great. So yeah, I just kind of stick to the
What's vetted,
scriptures and the prophet. Yeah.
right?
Safe. I'm safe with that.
Awesome. Becky, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. I have enjoyed this. I still feel like I could sit. I feel like we need to go to a retreat together or something so I can just hang out with you and hear more. I know that there's a story in there. And I want
Yeah.
to hear your story.
Oh, thank
Because
you.
you just don't become you without a story.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm trying to think of what my story is, but thank you.
Well, we have one, all of us, but thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time. I appreciate everything that you have shared. Do you have anything that you would like to say to listeners before we close?
I would just say, in these uncertain times where we are surrounded in doubt and fear, and we're surrounded with reading content from people who can post anything they want, as President Hinckley would say, this is not a quote, but I just know that he would say it, just put your chin up and be positive. Things are going to work out. And please be careful in what you consume. Because I mean, I don't know. I wasn't planning to like say any of this in this podcast, but it just keeps coming up. There's just so much out there that you really have to be careful with. And so just keep being faithful. Read all of President Nelson's General Conference talks, all of them. And it will give you hope. But things are going to be okay.
And that's exactly what President Hinckley would say. Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out.
Yep, love him.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to chat with you.
Okay, you guys, that was an amazing interview. I love Becky. I feel like I've known her for my entire life. She's amazing. And I love all of the insights that she had to share. So thank you for listening. Let's take a look at our Do One Thing invitation for this week. I'm actually going to send you over to Becky's website as the Do One Thing invitation, because I really think that every single one of us needs to go over there and sign up for her Finding Your Spiritual Gifts. And even if you think you already know what they are, just go through that process of the questions that she asks and the information that she shares and her insights, and see what you can discover about your spiritual gifts. And you may discover gifts that you didn't know that you have. So, and that you may be using them in ways that you didn't realize. So go over to beckysquire.com and go over to the part where she talks about discover your spiritual gifts. While you're there, you might want to sign up for this Family Proclamation group study. It is really amazing. You guys, I get them every week. And I don't always go on the Facebook because I'm not into Facebook very much anymore. But I am definitely love the insights and the people that she has had to come in and share additional insights, just diving a little deeper into that proclamation. I think you're going to enjoy that. It is well worth your time, and you're going to get a study guide out of that. You're going to get some great material. So while you're on her website, do a little perusing, all right? Because she's got some great stuff on there. All right, you guys, if you are enjoying these episodes, I hope that you will share them with your friends and family on social media. I hope that they are edifying you. And thank you for everybody who has told me that they are sharing these. Thank you for the reviews in iTunes. I appreciate them so much. You guys, your shares and your reviews are the best way to keep this podcast growing. It's still a new podcast. We are growing in an amazing way, and I am so appreciative of that. But the main thing is bringing light into women's lives and giving women an opportunity to listen to something that will uplift and edify them, that will add light to their day, and just will help them recognize that we are connected as sisters. Like these episodes, I do want women to deepen their connection to Christ. We all want to deepen our connection to Christ. And I am hoping that this is one way that happens. But strengthening our connection with each other is powerful as well. It helps me so much when I find out that other women have experienced some of the things that I've experienced, and how they have dealt with them, and just hearing women's stories of faith and how they deal with trials and some of the challenges, especially right now. It is uplifting and edifying to me. So thank you so much. All of your feedback, the messages that you send to me, I appreciate them so much. And I do my very best to respond to every single one. So love hearing from you. All right, guys, have a great week, and I will catch you next time.